It took me 426 days to recover from the worst injury of my life. That's 14 months of actually being injured, getting the surgery in order to fix me, and all of the rehab I had to do in order to get back to normal. I went through tons of physical damage, but honestly, a lot more
emotional damage.
And despite all of that, I still managed to recover and become stronger than I ever was before. And because I care about all of you guys, I'm gonna share with you guys everything that happened to me during those 426 days so that you'll never have to go through what I went through. I'm gonna tell you guys how I got injured in the first place so you don't make the same mistake. I'm gonna share with you all of the obstacles and setbacks I had to go through which delayed my recovery for so long. But I'm also gonna share with you at the end the most important lessons I got out of this so that if this ever happens to you or has happened to you, you're gonna know how to bounce back and come back stronger than ever before. But first, what the hell happened to me? As some of you may have seen from my videos, I have a pretty big scar on my right shoulder. And I wish I could tell you that this was an epic injury where I lost my hand fighting with my brothers, or I broke all of my bones in a single punch. Hell, I even would have accepted getting blasted by Hollow Purple. I mean, at least I'd die a badass. No, in reality, it's a lot less epic and a lot more stupid. On February 14th, 2022, yeah, Valentine's Day, I was lonely and I got injured. Great. I was finally able to go to a physical gym after a few months of lockdown, but of course this was still during COVID, so there were some restrictions. And mind you, because it was COVID, most of the time I was working out from home, and it just so happened to be my push day when I went to the gym. And one of the things I missed during COVID was heavy weighted dips. And even though I haven't done them in a while, I still tried to go for my 5 rep max, which was 3 plates. To my surprise, I was able to do the first set, no problem. I actually felt stronger. Like, to my surprise, it didn't feel that difficult. I even did another set of 5 after. So that's 2 sets of 5. Okay, all good. But that's where the problem started to set in. I started to feel this kind of pain in my shoulder. Not super painful, but it was noticeable enough where, you know, kind of bothered me a bit. And I thought, well, I just got one more set left, right? What could go wrong? It went horribly wrong. So on the 3rd set, I went down on my first rep, and as I got to the bottom stretch, that's when it happened. I felt a snap in my shoulder, and I felt like this burning pain searing across my chest. It felt like my pec was like moving underneath the skin. And as I got down from the dip bars and I was feeling my chest, I realized what I feared came true. I tore my pec off of the bone. So how did this happen in the first place? See, I was a healthy, fit, strong individual, if I do say so myself. And most importantly, I'm natty, which is a big factor when it comes to muscle tears. So if that's all the case, what the hell went wrong? I asked myself this question for months until I finally found out the answer. And it's basically 3 things, and I think I can come up with anime analogies for all 3 of them. My first mistake was not taking a deload week. It's kind of like when Deku kept using One For All, even though all of his bones were broken. As he continued to break his arms over and over and over again, and had very little time to recover, he started to develop irreversible damage in his limbs. And that's basically what happened to me. Obviously not to that scale. I had been training intensely for about a good 2 to 3 years at that point, and at the time I thought more volume equals more gains. So much so that I didn't take any deload weeks. I had no long days off. As a result, I started to develop these micro tears in my tendons, which were probably going to give at any point, and didn't take a week off to let them heal. Because tendons don't recover as fast as muscles because they don't get as much blood flow. My second big mistake was my overly inflated ego. And it's kind of similar to how Toji got killed the first time. Look at me comparing myself to Toji again. Anything for views, am I right? Toji killed Gojo, which is in a feat of itself. Done. Done and dusted. Satoru Gojo, dead. End of story, right? Well, Gojo came back a lot stronger and with the power of reverse curse technique. Toji had no reason to kill him again. His job was done. But his pride and ego got in the way of what he was supposed to do, and that's what resulted in him looking like the Apple logo. With me, I was proud of having a 135 dip. Like, I got compliments in the gym from it a lot, which really inflated my ego. And having not trained it during COVID made me want to do it again. But deep inside, I knew that I shouldn't go for extremely heavy dips, especially when I haven't done them in a while. And, you know, I wouldn't be able to handle that load. But just like Toji, my ego got in the way and I ended up ego lifting. So don't be stupid. Don't be like Toji, don't be like me. The third mistake is how I prepped for the lift and bringing it back to Deku. When he used 100% of One For All or All For... One for All. When he used 100% of One for All for the first time, he completely broke his arms. He needed to get used to like 10%, 20%, 50% power before he could ramp up into 100% One for All. In my case, instead of jumping straight into 135, I should have started with maybe 25, 45, 75, even 100 before going for 135 pounds right away. This would have allowed me to ramp up my strength and be able to actually warm up my body for that lift. But, oh well. Hindsight is 2020. So that's how I got injured. But what actually stopped me from recovering, and why did it take so long? And this is the part of the story that kind of pisses me off the most, so bear with me. The first time I went to the doctor, which was right after the injury, she told me to go get an ultrasound, which, if you've torn a muscle, is inferior to getting an MRI. And this is very important to note. And after getting the results, the doctor told me, I see nothing wrong here. You're good to go. And at first I thought, oh, that's a sigh of relief. I'm glad I didn't tear anything. That's perfect. It was just a minor injury. Oh, goody me. But I knew, I had a gut feeling that wasn't true. And I think a big tell was just how it felt, how the pec was forming, and the massive bruise on my bicep, which, if you don't know, when you tear a pec, the blood is gonna pool down into your upper arm. So I got a second opinion from the hospital, sat in the waiting area for an hour or so, and then I was called to the doctor. At this point, I had a visibly attached pec, bruising on my upper arm, and a face full of sadness. And despite all of that, the doctor said, "Nah, you're fine." And you know what's even dumber? I believed her. And as soon as I got back to my house and I settled myself in bed, I thought, I don't think she's correct. Like, I knew it was torn. I didn't need a doctor to tell me it was torn because I could feel it. I could see it. Like, when you tear a muscle or a pec, when you flex it, it actually bunches up into your inner chest because it's got nothing to pull on. Anyway, I'm still coping at this point because I wanted to believe the doctors were right, but to know for sure, I was just trying my best to get an MRI. And this is where the problem really started to kick in. I went to a physiotherapist, not only to get some function back in my arm, but also to try to get a referral for an MRI. So I saw this physio guy who was apparently a skeletal muscle professional. I think you could tell by the air quotes that wasn't the case. And I told him everything that I was going through, and then he examined me. Felt my pec, felt my shoulder, even felt my bicep, and he said to me, "Nah, you're good. That bruising? Probably nothing. The visible tendon that's sticking out of your shoulder, you've always had that. You just never noticed it. MRI? Pfft, you don't need that. My naked human eye can tell everything about your body." And so far, every single doctor that I've been to has told me, you don't need an MRI. But I knew from like all of the research that I did is that the MRI is probably the best way to tell if your pec or any muscle is torn. Yet every single doctor said it wasn't necessary. So, being stupid, I believed him again, and I continued to do physio on my torn pec. Even when I was physically unable to do the moves, they were like, that's normal. There's nothing wrong here. And the whole time, I believed everything the PTs had said because I was coping. I didn't want to believe it was torn, and I thought they could be trusted because I thought they knew what they were doing. And I believed them for months until the doubt started to settle back in. And that's when I went to get an opinion from another doctor. And again, in the waiting room for probably like 2 hours, I probably took like a nap or something. I woke up to Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, which was pretty funny. And as the doctor was examining me, he said, "Don't know for sure. We're gonna have to go for an ultrasound." Immediately, I just put on my caring glasses and said, no, actually MRI is the best way to, detect if the muscle is torn. The ultrasound is actually not that good, and you're not being a good doctor right now, and I know I don't need these pills and medicines and get my blood checked and where I'm gonna speak to your manager. So I got my MRI referral. See, the problem with Canadian healthcare is that it takes forever to get an MRI, which also delayed my recovery even more. I had to wait another 2 months before I could get examined. But during this time, I had oddly gained some of my strength back. I could still do a handstand, I could still do the 90-degree hold. Even the one-arm push-up was possible, which I found so strange. After I did the MRI, waited a longer to get the results back. When they finally arrived, I was just devastated, but not for the reasons you might think. It was apparently the doctor that had ordered the MRI accidentally ordered the wrong MRI. He ordered a shoulder MRI instead of a pec MRI. I initially thought, oh, it's not a big deal. I could just get another one, right? Right. But they said it would be another 2 months of waiting. And everything just kind of just collapsed on me all at once. And I just I burst into tears. This had been the most difficult few months of my life. I had no one to talk to about it. No one could empathize with what I was going through. I couldn't really go outside because it was still technically COVID time. And I was still in university, so I could only take online classes. So some of the classes that I needed to graduate with my degree, I couldn't take, or I needed to change up my degree, which was just a mess to deal with. Everything just sucked. And at this point, I was feeling hopeless. If you didn't know, muscle repair surgeries need to happen at least within 2 weeks of the injury so that the repair can be as successful as possible. But at this point, it's been like 4 or 5 months since the injury, and I felt that was it. I'm never gonna get this repaired. Luckily, my mom came in very clutch. She too put on her Karen glasses and just went full ham on the hospital and argued my way to getting an MRI within 2 weeks. Still seemed like an eternity for me, but it was a whole lot better than 2 whole months. And more good news, the doctor overseeing me was an actual orthopedic surgeon specializing in the shoulder. And thank God. And when he talked to me, he sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He was so nice, he asked me questions, and didn't just like dismiss me like the other doctors did. He even referred me to another surgeon who specialized in that type of surgery, and apparently was the best in Canada. Not even joking. I have no idea how many doctors I've seen at this point or how many hours I've been in waiting rooms, because I've seen more doctors than I mentioned in this video, for probably the same reasons. I finally went to this new hospital to get the MRI results and see this specialist. He asked me, oh, 6 months, huh? Why'd it take so long to see me? I mean, you're telling me, man, I've got Omega screwed by these other doctors telling me I'm okay, I'm fine, I don't need to worry about it, no MRI, blah, 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 blah. Later he asked me about my strength levels, and I told him, yeah, I pretty much gained like 90% of my strength back. And he was immediately baffled. He said, well, you tore 60% of your pec off. How did you do that? I guess I'm just special. Anyway, after 60% of a tear, months of waiting, and a whole lot of crying, I finally got my surgery. If there's anything I learned from this experience, 1, if you tear a muscle, go see an orthopedic surgeon. See nobody else. Request an orthopedic surgeon. Very important. But I think even more than that, if it costs peace of mind, don't buy it. Alex Hormozi. I genuinely was in the worst state of mind I've ever been in my life during that time. I was neurotic. I was emotional. I had absolutely no peace of mind. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't focus on my studies, couldn't focus on my games, couldn't focus on my friends, because all I was thinking about was the injury and how I'm screwed for life. And I tried seeking validations from these doctors, which was ultimately, I was just trying to seek false hope. I subscribed to all of the bad advice these doctors told me, but I shouldn't have bought into that in the first place. And even if I was wrong, even if I was completely wrong and I was paranoid about nothing, at least I'd be sure, right? It wasn't worth my peace of mind to comply with what others were saying. Don't seek truth from other people until you seek it within yourself first. Do not let other people tell you how to feel or who you are. If I had done that in the first place, I probably would have gotten my MRI, probably would have gotten surgery like right away. But before I go into my post-surgery experience, it's pretty safe to say I went through a lot. I know this isn't my usual Calcise content, as I'm sharing a pretty vulnerable story with you guys, but if you want to keep up with the other content I have to offer, and in exchange for, sharing my deep, dark secrets on the internet with you guys, you should subscribe. It would mean a whole lot to me. It would help support the channel, and it would mean that I also didn't tear my pec for nothing. So please. So after I got the surgery, what the hell happened? Well, first off, I decided to take things a lot slower and give my body the healing that it deserved. This was important because I remember my motivation for working out was a very toxic one. It reminds me of when Todoroki was only using his ice abilities, and that made him objectively weaker. Only when he started to embrace his other half, embrace his whole self, and start using his fire powers, was he able to not only become stronger, but also heal himself emotionally. Since I was fresh out of a breakup, I had a lot of self-loathing and hate towards myself, where the only way that I could feel better was to beat and batter my body through working out and getting stronger. I viewed it in a place of anger, and I was always channeling that emotion when I was working out, and I always felt inadequate if I thought I wasn't strong enough. But after the injury, I realized I needed to change that mindset right away. I started to learn to take things slower and actually start to take care of my body, that every set, every single repetition was an attempt to just make it stronger and properly take care of it, not as a form of self-punishment. And that shift actually helped me to propel my progress a lot faster, even after the injury. But I think what helped me the most during these times was I didn't stop training. And the whole time my arm was in a sling, I felt like Rock Lee doing push-ups straight out of the hospital. Just the sheer dedication. What a guy. Even if one arm was down, I could still train the other one. Even if I had no arms to train, I could still do legs. And even if I couldn't do any squats, I could still walk. Hell, I didn't even stop training even right after I was injured. The next day, I just did legs. I probably did legs so many times while I couldn't use my upper body. I was essentially unstoppable. I was limitless. And even if I couldn't, and I had to be bedbound for years, this next lesson helped me to cope with that thought. And honestly, it's a very empowering, especially if you're going through something like this. If you're not willing to lose it all and build it up again, you're not on the right path. And you can quote me on that. Okay, here's an example if it doesn't make any sense. If Tanjiro gets horrifically injured and during his recovery phase, all of the upper rank demons come back and he has to defeat them all over again, would he do it? If Itadori kills Sukuna, but years later, he and the other special grade curses manifest and he has to defeat them all over again, would he take that journey? If I had to completely stop training and lose all of my strength, lose all of my muscle, would I get back on the bar and start training all over again? The answer to all of those is yes. I was prepared to lose everything from this injury and still come back stronger than ever. The real joy of doing calisthenics didn't come from achieving these skills or achieving a great physique. It was the amount of times I fell while trying to do a handstand before I could achieve it. It was the burning sensations in my muscles when I was pushing for that last rep. It was the hours that I spent training a skill only to hold it for maybe a few seconds at a time. It was always about the process, never about the outcome. And this goes for any aspect of life. If you're not willing to lose everything and then build it up all over again, then the outcome you were striving for the first place is not going to fulfill you. And you can disagree all you want with that statement. Let me know in the comments if you do. But honestly, process always wins over outcome. Always. And as long as I keep that in mind, no matter what the setback is, I'll always manage to come back stronger and better. And you can too. But if this video wasn't motivating enough and you still struggle with a bit of consistency, then you can check out my video on how to achieve consistency right here.